Hello, my name is Matthew, and we are on shelf 13 of my tiny house library tour. And if you're interested in any of the books that I'll be showing, you can send me an email and we can work something out. You will be supporting my plans to visit Spain, and I also have a GoFundMe link if that's something that might interest you as well. But let's look at the books. And the first one is Nova Express by William S. Burroughs, an experimental writer. I'm glad that I've read him. At this point, I don't have much taste for him anymore, very little value. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. I loved this book. I thought it was hilarious and fast-paced and full of larger-than-life characters and grotesque scenes. The main character's name is Ingracious J. Riley. Yeah. An essay collection, Facing Unpleasant Facts, George Orwell. Fantastic collection of essays. I probably like Orwell's nonfiction more than his fiction, and I love his fiction. We have Other Voices, Other Rooms by Truman Capote. I absolutely loved this novel. It's an early work. I tend to prefer Capote's early work to his later work. Consider the Oyster by M.F.K. Fisher. I just saw Steve Donahue had a video just yesterday. He got a big collection of the writings of M.F.K. Fisher. I loved this book. I would love to spend more time with the author. Billy Budd Sailor and Other Stories by Herman Melville, one of my favorite American writers. This has The Piazza, Benito Cereno, a couple other stories. It has Bartleby the Scrivener. A bit uneven. I don't love everything that Herman Melville has written, but very high markings. And then we have we have a string of French books. And I'll just show Les 11 Verges. It's French. It's a pornographic novel by Apollinaire. I believe the translation is something like 1 million or 1,000 virgins or 1,000 rods. This is a great collection of short stories by Maupassant, the Guy de Maupassant, The Necklace and Other Stories. It's completely washed out. Gosh. I don't know. And it has a really great way of separating the stories. So it's broken into tales of French life, tales of war, and tales of the supernatural. Maupassant went in several different directions. Society stories and realistic stories and city life and country life and supernatural stories. I was very happy to find this. So this is Micromagus and Other Stories by Voltaire, and it's a collection of tales that are similar to Candide. Let me see. So Micromagus, The Way of the World, a whole collection. If you like Candide, it has similar that similar style. A great overview of some French writers that are more unknown, and this is French Decadent Tales. It's completely washed out. You can't see anything. I don't know what I can do about that. Let's see. I can't even pronounce that. Leon Bloy, Octave Mirbeau, Jean Richepin, Guy de Maupassant, Jean Lorraine, Remy de Goncourt, Remy de Gourmont, Collected Maxims, La Rochefoucauld. It's going to be washed out again, I'm sure. But look at that. Isn't that a great cover? And it has all those pithy, dirty, enigmatic, witty sayings that La Rochefoucauld was known for. It's a random page. Nearly all of our faults are more forgivable than the means we use to hide them. 20th century American writer, one of my favorite short story writers, Donald Barthelme. And this is a novel, Paradise. I just reread this maybe a year and a half ago. I prefer his short stories to his longer works. Two novels by one of my favorite writers of the 20th century. This is Samuel Beckett. And you have Watt and Murphy. And at some point, I really need to get back to reading these. Some of his, these two and a couple others, the stories bleed together, but it does feel like Beckett has created a whole world where all of these different stories and characters are interacting. This was a great find. I was so excited. So this is Ramo's Nephew and Other Works by Dittero, and it's just a completely plain gray cover, so nothing too exciting. But these stories are translated by Jacques Barzoon and Ralph H. Bowen. And Barzoon is one of these towering intellectual figures. He wrote From Dawn to Decadence, which just covers the cultural and literary and artistic history of the 20th, of world history, human history. A fabulous novel by Virginia Woolf. She did nothing else. This is Mrs. Dalloway. Brief Interviews with Hideous Men by David Foster Wallace. This is the first thing that I had ever read by David Foster Wallace, and I don't know if I actually read this book. I encountered him because a friend years ago lent me her copy, and I was intrigued. There's a lot of strange, experimental, versatile kind of writing in all of these different short stories. I went on to read other things by David Foster Wallace. I thought it was a good start for me. My Idea of Fun by Will Self. It's completely washed out. God. I like Will Self. I try to read. He's a contemporary English writer. I like his style. He has a very distinct vocabulary. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. It's a story of murder. Where was it? Yeah, in Kansas. 4 members of the Clutter family were savagely murdered. And it's like a fictionalized nonfiction, or Capote had some way of making it sound special. But it's really good. I like this little book. It's The Life of Jesus, The Gospel in Brief by Leo Tolstoy. And I'm sure there's hundreds of these kinds of books, but it's a restructuring of all of the Gospels to put them in a different order. So Tolstoy made one chronological order that pulls from all of the different Gospels into just this little book. And it's interesting that Tolstoy created this little thing. In his version, Tolstoy is God. I'll show this thing up here. So this was a Christmas gift from an ex-coworker 2 years ago. and it was one of the best gifts. I think 3 years ago. This is right when I had gotten my little cat, Andy, Sheriff Andy Taylor, and she went through my social media and collected all the pictures that I had been posting of my little kitten. And so she made a calendar, this flip calendar, showing. Look, can you see? There's Andy and me. There was one picture I thought, oh my gosh, look at him. That's when he was little. I'll show you this. Yeah, I'll show. This is the last one I'll show. So this is Andy sitting on my little step in front of my books, and it's hard to tell, but he's tiny there. He's twice as big now. He's sitting over there. He doesn't know I'm talking about him. Okay, where do we leave off? Lanzarote by Michelle Welbeck. And this is very thin. It's either a long short story or very short novella. And it's probably my favorite thing I've read by Welbeck. I thought it was. Oh, look, it has pictures. Forgot about that. And it's just this dirty, seedy tale, like most of his stories. But I loved it, and I thought the length worked really well. You can read it in a sitting. An American, early 20th century American poet, I believe. This is Robinson Jeffers' selected poetry, and I like him as a poet. He has several works that I've really enjoyed. I believe he fell out of favor because of his political views, or maybe he was a fascist, or you know, all the reasons. I don't know exactly, but great little edition of poetry by Robinson Jeffers. Days of Reading by Marcel Proust. That's completely washed out. Is there anything I can do about that? Oh my god. It's a white square. Days of Reading by Marcel Proust. It's a shame because it's a beautiful cover. Possibly the best introduction to Proust if you didn't want to start reading Swann's Way. It's very, very different. It's Proust talking about the joys of reading, and in a meta way that plays a part in remembrance of things past. And it's just short, so a little French novel or that's not a novel, a little work by a French writer that nobody's ever heard of, Tropisms by Nathalie Cerut, and it's completely white. Oh my god. Great French Short Stories, and I loved this little book. Whenever I was reading it, you could just learn so many writers that can be hard to find. It's a good sampling. Camus, Sartre, Beckett, Baudelaire, Maupassant, Balzac, Nerval, Mallarmé, Colette, and others. It's great. Anatole France. The Autobiography and Other Writings by Benjamin Franklin. An American figure, big personality, and great writer. I really enjoyed this. I'm not sure how reliable Benjamin Franklin is as a narrator, but it's great fun and insightful. You can learn. I learned a lot about his life and who he was as a person, and his view on the world, and things like that. It's really interesting. He lived such an interesting life. And the last book is just a strange artifact of a time that's gone, and it's a New York map. And when I used to visit New York, I needed I didn't have a smartphone or anything like that, and it's a directory of New York City, so Manhattan, so I can get around, and then it had uh, bars and restaurants and events, theaters, venues of things that I could do while I was in New York City, and it was up to date, and it broke it down into pricing, so you could look up. Um, I could look up how poor I was, and and then go on appropriately. And that's it. So that's shelf 13. I apologize for the lighting. I'll see if I can do anything about that. But if you're interested in any of these books, let me know. You can send me an email, or if any of the shelves so far. And that's it. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any thoughts about the books that I shared, or the uh, opinions that I shared, anything like that. So leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching, and take care.